Imagine climbing aboard a raft no larger than a small apartment. There is no privacy, no escape, just open ocean stretching to every horizon. Now imagine spending more than 3 months there with strangers from different countries, cultures, and personalities. It sounds like the beginning of a survival movie, but in 1973 it actually happened. A controversial anthropologist named Santiago Genovés believed this floating raft could answer one of humanity's oldest questions. Are people naturally driven toward conflict, or can cooperation survive even under extraordinary pressure? What happened next challenged many expectations, including those of the scientist who designed the experiment. This is the story of Acali, the raft that set out to test human desire, conflict, and the limits of human nature. To understand why the Acali expedition happened, we first need to understand the man behind it. Santiago Genovés was an anthropologist whose life's work revolved around one difficult question. Why do humans fight? Wars, violence, revolutions, and conflict had shaped much of the 20th century. Many scientists believed aggression was deeply rooted in human nature. Genovés wasn't satisfied with simple answers. He wondered whether conflict was truly inevitable or whether it emerged because of the situations people found themselves in. Instead of studying people inside a laboratory, he wanted to observe them in a real environment where every decision mattered. His idea was bold, controversial, and unlike anything attempted before. Place complete strangers together on a small raft, isolate them for months in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and watch what happened. If conflict was inevitable, this voyage should reveal it. But the Atlantic had surprises waiting for everyone, including the scientist himself. Preparing the expedition was almost as unusual as the voyage itself. Genovés didn't recruit a team of experienced sailors who already knew each other. Instead, he assembled a diverse group of strangers from different countries, cultures, professions, and personalities. His thinking was simple. If conflict was a natural part of human behavior, then placing unfamiliar people in a cramped space for months should eventually bring those tensions to the surface. The raft itself was designed to make cooperation unavoidable. Living space was limited. Privacy was almost non-existent. Every meal, every task, and every challenge would be shared. Out on the open Atlantic, there was no easy escape from disagreement, but there was also no way to survive without working together. In many ways, the raft became a floating laboratory where every conversation, every disagreement, and every act of cooperation formed part of the experiment. What no one could predict was that the greatest challenge might not come from the participants at all. As the coastline slowly disappeared behind them, the crew entered a world with no shortcuts and no escape. Ahead lay thousands of kilometers of open Atlantic Ocean. Every sunrise brought the same horizon. Every sunset reminded them how far they were from land. Life quickly settled into a routine. Meals had to be prepared. Equipment needed constant attention. Navigation demanded focus. Everyone had responsibilities. The raft didn't care about personalities or opinions. It rewarded cooperation and punished carelessness. Surprisingly, the conflicts Genovés expected didn't immediately appear. Instead, the strangers began adapting to one another. Small acts of kindness became part of everyday life. The experiment had only just begun. But already, reality was refusing to follow the script. As the days turned into weeks, the Atlantic became strangely familiar. The ocean was no longer the greatest challenge. Living together was. Every conversation mattered. Every misunderstanding lingered a little longer. Every disagreement had nowhere to go. Yet, instead of descending into constant conflict, many crew members adapted remarkably well. They developed routines, shared responsibilities, and in many cases, mutual trust. According to several participants who later reflected on the voyage, the person most determined to provoke confrontation was sometimes Santiago Genovés himself. They claimed he occasionally asked deeply personal questions, encouraged emotional discussions, and closely observed how people reacted. Genovés believed these moments might reveal important insights into human behavior. Others felt his intervention sometimes created tension, rather than simply recording it. That disagreement would later become one of the most debated aspects of the entire experiment. After nearly 100 days at sea, the voyage was coming to an end. The Atlantic had tested everyone aboard. Storms, exhaustion, isolation, endless days surrounded by nothing but water. Yet, the dramatic collapse that many people might expect never truly arrived. There were disagreements, frustrations, moments of tension, but there were also friendships, shared laughter, mutual support. In interviews after the expedition, several participants suggested that working together became easier than fighting one another. Their greatest challenge wasn't simply living on a small raft. It was learning to understand people whose lives and experiences were very different from their own. Perhaps that was the experiment's most unexpected discovery. Not that conflict disappeared, but that cooperation proved far more resilient than many had imagined. So, did the Acali experiment actually answer the question it set out to investigate? The honest answer is not completely. Modern researchers point out several important limitations. The crew was very small. There was no control group. Every participant knew they were part of an experiment. And because Santiago Genovés actively interacted with the crew, it became difficult to separate natural behavior from behavior influenced by the researcher himself. These factors make it hard to draw broad scientific conclusions, but that doesn't mean the expedition was meaningless. Far from it. Acali offered something that laboratory experiments often cannot. A rare glimpse into how real people adapted to extraordinary circumstances over an extended period. It reminds us that human behavior is rarely simple. Conflict and cooperation are not opposites. They often exist side by side, and sometimes the biggest lesson from an experiment isn't the answer it finds. It's the better questions it leaves behind. More than 50 years after the Acali expedition, one question still echoes across the Atlantic. What happens when strangers are forced to share the same small world? Santiago Genovés hoped his voyage would uncover the roots of human conflict. Instead, it revealed something far more complicated. People argued. They disagreed. They became frustrated. But they also adapted. They listened. They helped one another. They found ways to live together despite their differences. The Acali experiment didn't prove that humans are naturally peaceful, nor did it prove that conflict is inevitable. What it showed was something more realistic. Human behavior is shaped by the people around us, the situations we face, and the choices we make. Perhaps the most important lesson wasn't about the Atlantic Ocean at all. It was about us. Every family, every workplace, every community, every society is its own small raft. We don't always choose who we travel with, but every day we choose whether to compete or cooperate. And maybe that's the question the Acali expedition leaves for every one of us. Not, what kind of people are we? But, what kind of people do we choose to become? Because understanding human nature begins with understanding ourselves. If you enjoyed this documentary, consider subscribing for more fascinating stories from history, science, and psychology. If this story made you think, share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.